Today, I want to share with you 3 steps to avoid getting ghosted by your club guests. And before I do, I want to share a little background on this. This came from an experience I had about 2 years ago. Now, my background is sales coaching and consulting. And 2 years ago, I found myself being asked to take over a sales team. And the sales team was for a great company, but they were really struggling. They had one really active sales rep and one that was not so active. And even though that one rep was very active, they weren't closing sales. In fact, it had been 6 months since he had closed a sale. And the last sale that he closed, it took him 6 weeks from when he first met that prospect to get them to say yes and invest in the product. And so this is a huge challenge for the company. So I came in, and the pieces that I share in this presentation originally came from how I took them from 6 months of no sales and a 6-week-long sales cycle to closing $90,000 in business in 90 days and shortening that sales cycle from the 6 weeks to 5 business days. So before I present that to you, I thought this past January, I came back to New Brunswick, and some fellow Toastmasters were trying to get some of their final points in the legacy program, and those ones that are really, really tough to get in the old program, which is club mentor and club sponsor. And because to get them, you need to create a new club. And I thought, I wonder how fast we can create a club. I wonder if I can take these 3 concepts that I use in sales to make such a big difference in this company and apply them to a brand new club starting from scratch. And so what I did was adjusted them, tweaked them a little bit. But ultimately on March 13th of this year, we had the first open house for a new Toastmasters club, which is a hybrid club called Beyond Toastmasters. Okay, March 13th. By April 13th, we had 21 paid members and just need to sign the paperwork to get it chartered. So 30 days. And so I know these steps will work in your club, no matter how new or how tenured the club is. It doesn't matter what kind of audience you have. These things will work. And they're very, very simple. In fact, my biggest concern about this presentation is that you look at it and go, really? Is that it? But I promise you, if you implement, you'll go, oh, that's it. And that's going to be the difference. And someone before the presentation asked me, does this apply just to guests or does it apply to members too? Because we all know that there's members that start to drift. There's members that get really excited about the club and then something happens and they miss a meeting. And we all know that as soon as you miss one meeting, it's a lot easier to miss the next meeting. And so these same strategies with a few tweaks can be implemented as well to help you keep your members coming back again and again. So if you are interested in hearing how, one, I created that $90,000 in 90 days for that client and how I use the same strategies to take a club from non-existent, and of course, it wasn't just me, it was an entire team, but how we took a club from the first open house meeting to charter strength in 30 days. Put yes in the chat box and let me know that I'm with the right group. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Picture this. A new guest shows up to the club, and let's pretend that we're still in physical locations for a minute. And let's call the guest Jana. Well, Jana comes to the door. She creeps her head and goes, am I in the right place? And luckily, your club has a rock star sergeant at arms or president or just overall membership, and someone runs up and says, yes, are you looking for Toastmasters? Come on in. And they sit them down, and they get to know a little bit about them, and they start to feel a connection. And then during the introductions, either your guest steps up and introduces themselves and feels that empowerment to be able to speak in front of a new audience, or depending on your club approach, maybe somebody in your club got to know them in advance and introduces them to the club. It makes them feel like $1 million. So suddenly they're feeling great. And then they go through the club meeting and they do table topics. They've got the guts that go, oh, yeah, I think I'll do it. And they do a table topic. And then at the end of table topics, because this is the unspoken rule, everybody votes for the guest as the best table topic. If you didn't know that, now you do. And it's a retention tool or an attraction tool, basically, because at the end of the meeting, your guest goes, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Look, they already love me. I've got an award. And then after the club meeting, the VP of memberships down and says, hey, I want to know, what brought you here, what you like, what your goals are. And you have that conversation. But at the end of the conversation, far too often, it ends with, great, I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. And then they start to drift away. Now, I want to illustrate this. And now I was once told to never use a graph in a presentation. So in this presentation, I used a graph just to see if we can challenge things a little bit. The first point, though, before I get into this, is stop relying on the information, that guest kit that I mentioned that you give them. I'm going to talk about why you can't rely on that. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about this graph. It's a very complex graph. On the left-hand side, I guess we call it the y-axis, going up is momentum. And I use momentum to describe someone's energy as they move towards a goal. In this particular situation, it's enrolling in the club. And around the x-axis, going left to right, is time. Say yes in the chat box if you know how time works. Okay, cool. We got some yeah. All right, awesome. That goes a little faster when you're in person, but that's all good. In this scenario I'm talking about, your guest is there. Her name again is Janet. She's very excited. And what's happening is that momentum is rising and rising. And what happens is by the end of that meeting, she's so excited. She's so pumped up. She's engaged. She's got that best table topic award in her hand. And then we say, great, we're going to see you next meeting. And now there's a really key piece that I want you to think about. And this applies for guests, for members, for anyone that's involved in anything that has to do with creating a positive energy around getting a result. There's a certain peak. Okay, in sales, it's the same way. When you get to level 5, that's the level where someone says, yes, I want to buy. Or in Toastmasters' case, yes, I want to join the club. By default, we tend to say, we'll see you at the next meeting because we want people to think about it. We want people to feel like they've had time to process. We don't want to feel pushy. And so when people get to that point, that peak, we say, hope to see you at the next meeting. And everything that happens from that point on actually reverses the momentum. It starts to drop. So if we pretend that we're back in the physical location, let's say that you're at Ottawa Collab Toastmasters at Collab Space, and they walk out of the room, they go and get in their car, and they go, I've got this great guest kit here. But man, it was kind of weird that they were clapping a lot. You ever heard that? Put in the chat, actually, what weird things that you thought about Toastmasters when you first got introduced. Here are some examples. They clap a lot. Ooh, that sure is rigid. What's with all this fellow Toastmasters stuff? Put something in the chat. So formal. Thank you, Susan. What else we got? Put some pieces in the comments there that you experience or you know that your guests have said. Why are they so friendly? Right? So we don't know what's going to go on in people's heads. And is it cultish, right? Like, what's with these guys? And then what's going to happen is they're going to go get in their car with some questions. They got this guest kit. They may never look at it. And then they're going to go home and they're going to reach out to a friend or a cousin or a colleague. And they're going to say, hey, I went to this Toastmasters meeting. It was kind of weird. Have you heard of this? And the friend's going to go, oh, I heard that's where the weirdos go. Because they've never been to a meeting. Or, yeah, I went to a meeting and I don't know, I just felt really weird. They were clapping at everything and the momentum drops and it continues to drop. And the more time that you let pass, the more the momentum drops. And eventually what happens is the momentum goes to the point where it's below where they started. You've let them come up with enough doubt and enough questions about Toastmasters that they're even less interested than they were before they came in. Think about that. And so when we send them away with information, we're saying, oh, this is going to be great. They're going to love it. This well put together guest package is going to do all the selling for me. And let's be clear, guys. And asking somebody to enroll in Toastmasters is selling. And selling is service. If you want to help somebody, you want to help somebody change their life, sell them something that will help them do it. Selling is not a bad word. Sale is not a 4-letter word in the negative context. Okay, selling is good. And what we do every single meeting is hopefully sell our existing members on the value that Toastmasters gives and sell guests on the idea of how it can help them achieve their goals. So if you put in the chat, if you think selling is a dirty word, I'm going to just put this out here. Just say yes if you think it's a dirty word. If you're like, oh, sales are bad, say yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you for your honesty. Appreciate it. There was a time. Yep. Yes. Okay. Awesome. No, but I'm shy. All right, Carol. Shy is okay. We can work with that. And I appreciate the honesty. Sales can be something that we have in the back of our minds, like, oh no, don't be like that used car salesman we saw in the movie Matilda, right? The Danny DeVito character. But we need to let go of that, because the reality is there are a few bad apples. There are some people that push, that drive people to buy things they don't need. We've all experienced that, but that isn't you. And the truth is that doesn't work for long-term sales. Toastmasters is built on relationships, which means you need to have the courage and the confidence to say, hey, I think this would be great for you. Let me help you get started. It doesn't have to be pushy, but sometimes when someone's nervous, they need a nudge. How many people on the call right now have been area director or above and needed someone to give them a little push to get there? Give me a yes. And Steph Weiss, I better see your yes in there. Okay, good. Okay, I was the same way. In fact, and this wasn't in this district, but when I was first area director, somebody said, say yes or I'm going to slap you silly. Now that may not be proper Toastmaster protocol, but I needed the push. And it was the best decision I ever made, because that position, that role, helped me learn more than ever about Toastmasters and what the opportunities were. And that was 5 years ago. And I've been a Toastmaster now for 7+ years. So it's completely changed my life. So I want you to know that this is a huge opportunity, not just for you and to get more members in your club, but to change somebody's life. And if we leave them with the information, we're sending them off with doubts, and we're letting them answer the questions on their own. Could you imagine if you were sent off, someone says, would you like to, you're looking at a car, let's say. You're looking at a brand new car, you're thinking about buying it, you're kind of excited, but you've got questions. And the sales guy says, well, here's the information. Let me know when you're interested. Well, you're going to go home and maybe you're going to look at the brochure. But even if you decide to buy the car, it's not going to be from him. And it's because he didn't make you feel important. He didn't make you feel special. And he wasn't there to help you answer questions when you had them. But this is what we do to guests over and over again. We give them a guest kit, hope it's going to do all the work. And we send them out in the world that's just going to hit them with questions and doubts and things that they're not sure of. And we're leaving them by themselves to find the answer. And that's not cool. So that's what we're going to eliminate. So stop relying on the information. We need to make sure there's powerful connections, powerful relationships, and don't be afraid to reach out to people. So when I dive into number 2, and this is going to make a lot of sense. So the sources, I think you're using Italian strategies. So the next piece, and this applies in sales, it applies for your guests. And you know what? This actually applies to members as well. Book the next call now. And so in sales, that means when you're on a sales call with somebody and you know you need to follow up, you're not ready to get them to say yes right now. They're not ready to say yes. Book the next call. Hey, look, I've got time at this point in time, and I want to make sure that we get all your questions answered, and get it on the calendar. We want to do that right from the start because we don't want people to drift away. Okay. Often we get stuck in a spot where we say, you know what? Hope to see you at the next meeting. Or in sales, we'll call you next week. Well, I bet your meetings are at least a week apart, right? Give me a yes in the chat if your meetings are at least a week apart. I know everybody's meetings at least a week apart. There we go. See, these aren't tough questions. At least, exactly. In some cases, they're 2 weeks apart. I'm a member of a club. I'm currently a member of 4 clubs. So by the way, multiple memberships is awesome. But I've got one club who only meets once a month. It's an advanced club. So think about how much space you're giving somebody before you say, I hope to see you at the next meeting. And it's the same thing with members. If you don't lock them into a role, this is why I would encourage you to fill agendas from a meeting, because you've got them there, you've got them committed, at least they're more likely to show up even when it's members, okay? Because what happens is when we go through this, clicked on the chat box. Sorry. As we push people into next week to think about it, they've got so much doubt that when that time comes to go to the meeting, they just go, I don't feel like it. Right? Next week in sales or in Toastmasters, next week is where sales go to die. Next week is where your next membership enrollment goes to die. If you wait until your next meeting to see them again, I promise you, your chances will drop significantly. So this is where I'm going to challenge you, because some of this stuff is a little bit uncomfortable for the first time you do it. After that, it'll be no problem. But I promise you, you start doing this, you will see more members or more guests, turn into members. Promise, I can guarantee it. Okay, so much confidence in this. So when you book the next call now, what happens is they have a place that they can mentally plan to have their questions answered. So if you can do it within 48 hours. So think about this. Ottawa Collab Toastmasters, our meetings are on Thursdays at noon. So if I said, hey, Lori, it was great to have you here. This is the guest kit. What did you think? And we're having this conversation. I want to learn as much as possible. And I want to be clear by saying, have a follow-up in 48 hours. I'm not saying don't ask them to join on the spot. In fact, you absolutely should. Lori, tell me, how do you see Toastmasters helping you achieve your goals? Oh, Lori, that's great. Look, why don't we do this? The next meeting is a week away, but if you want, I can get the paperwork started now. How does that sound? And enroll them right there on the spot. There's nothing wrong with it. If you word it effectively, it's not pushy. It's offering somebody an opportunity. Who here has had Toastmasters change their life? Give me a yes in the chat. And I would say yes all day. Toastmasters completely changed my life. Toastmasters is the reason why I was able to finish my degree at the age of, 32. Toastmasters is the reason why I was able to launch a business. Toastmasters is the reason why I was able to write a best-selling book. And Toastmasters is literally the reason why I'm able to become an international speaker, because I spoke on the US side at a Toastmasters conference. So Toastmasters is the reason why all these things happen to me, and Toastmasters can be whatever you need it to be. But I see lots of yeses, and yes, even at 70, awesome, right? So don't allow your fear of being pushy or salesy hold you back from helping somebody have the same opportunity that Toastmasters has created for you, and that you've created for yourself through Toastmasters, right? This isn't, a hands-off deal. You got to be in, you got to be engaged, you got to step up for the roles, you got to do the speeches. But for those that are willing to put in the work and put in the time, there's a world of opportunity ahead of you. You could put me on a stage now with 3 minutes notice, and I say this because it's happened. I once had, I was at a conference and someone said, hey, how do they introduce you? And I said, for what? And I was a sponsor, but I didn't know I was speaking. And in the room, there was about 100 people. At least 20 of them were Toastmasters. I said, when do I speak? They said, in 3 minutes. And I went, okay. And I survived. And it was a huge challenge for me, but that's what Toastmasters did for me. It allowed me to get on that stage and to survive. And if you ever go look at my website, there's a video clip that makes me look super authoritative. I'm on stage with a microphone in my hand, and it came from that event. That 3 minutes that I was on stage, terrified, but I did it. And it looks great from a marketing perspective. So just one example of what Toastmasters can do. So if we go back to the actual topic, and I can't believe I'm getting sidetracked and I'm the only one talking right now, but I'm sure Lori, my VA, is laughing on here. But if you schedule this follow-up within 48 hours, think of it like, hey, you know what? If we use our example with Jana, the guest Jana, it was great to have you here, and I'm excited for what this can do for you. Tell me, are you ready to jump in and join right now? You know what, Jeremy? I'm not sure. I kind of got to think about it. Okay, cool. I got you. No problem. Here's what I'd like to do, and I hope you're okay with it. When a guest comes in, I want to make sure that they get all their questions answered. And so why don't we go and book a time, let's say a couple days from now, where we can jump on a quick call. It can be a Zoom meeting, and just talk about things that are coming up, some questions that you have, and get a feel for what you thought of the meeting. Is that okay? Yeah, great. And it's most times you're going to get an okay or a yes from that. And the goal for doing it, the reason for doing it 48 hours out is because if you look at this line, this isn't just a cool graphic here. There is some sustenance to it. This line shows how quickly somebody's energy drops. And as you get into next week, you've lost a lot of opportunity. But if you cut it off at 48 hours, you'll see here, the level that they're at is about a 3. And what you need to do, and I want you to think about this, whether it's for guests or for members, when someone's momentum or that energy that's going to help them move towards the goal, when it drops, you need to go and bring it back up. So in this scenario, if you talk to somebody at the 48-hour mark, you need to bring this level from a 3 to a 5. Because that's the point again when they're going to say, yes, I want to do this. And that conversation needs to include things like, hey, tell me again what brought you out here. How do you see Toastmasters helping you in your personal life, in your business? And you need to get them excited. You need to get that energy up again. Again, this is a sales conversation, but it's one that will change somebody's life. And if you do it enough, it'll change yours too, because you're going to get better at helping change other people's lives. And it's going to feel amazing. Okay, so we say 48 hours. I say 48 hours because it gives you less of a gap. And there's less time for those doubts to happen. So instead of Jana going and asking her cousin about Toastmasters, and she says, oh, I don't know, maybe it's a cult, and asking her colleague about Toastmasters, and oh, I don't know, I was there and it seemed really rigid and weird. She doesn't have as much time to get all this extra feedback. So you can cut her off at the pass, basically, to make sure she doesn't get any inaccurate information that you have to, these myths that you have to dispel. Have the conversation 2 days out and make it okay that they have questions. Now, I want to challenge you a little bit more. What if you did it for the next day? Now, from a logistical perspective, if you can make this follow-up call or meeting or whatever you want to call it, the very next day, what that'll do is it'll take you from the level 3 that was at 48 hours and shorten it to a level, or bring it up to a level 4. So now you've only got, in this particular diagram, this much space or this one step to do to bring them back to that point where they want to enroll, where they want to join the club. And so some of the things that we did, for example, with Beyond Toastmasters, the club that we managed to get to 20 paid members in 30 days, is I stayed late after every meeting and I said, great, if you want to learn how to join, I'll stick around and share that with everybody. And I'd get 3 or 4 people ask me and I'd say, great, do this, do this, do this. And it was done. And it went so quickly because I didn't give them time to get the doubts. Now, there were some that were really interested, but had questions. And I did book one-on-one conversations with them to find out what their goals were, to learn more about them. There was one lady who had been looking at Toastmasters for months, had been to an open house from another club. And she was debating which club to join. And I said, the answer is to join both. And she did. But I had to get to know her. I had to learn more about her business and talk about how each club could benefit her. And if I left her for weeks and weeks and weeks, she could have disappeared. She could have thought, I don't see it. I'm just not going to bother going back. I can do something better with that hour or 2 of my day. But when you cut them off from all that negative or the negativity or the doubt or anything that can impact their decision, and make sure that they're just getting the right information. You're not pushing somebody into something that's not right for them, but you just want to make sure they're making the decision with the right information. So put in the chat, I want you to write the word scared if you were scared to ask somebody to meet you the day after they come to a meeting. And I appreciate your vulnerability and honesty. Who's scared? And it's okay to admit it, because I'll be honest, when I first started this, I was nervous about it. Oh, we get no's. Oh, good. Oh, we get scared. Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing. And so type in the box, just never thought of it before. Awesome. So for those of you that are nervous or scared or like, oh, I could never do that, tell me why in the chat. I'm going to keep going, but I want to come back to it because I want to make sure they all get addressed. Because there's one more step. But I want to go through what the conversation would look like. Okay. Hey, Jana, I'm really glad you could come out. and I know you got to run, and that's okay. Look, I've got this guest kit that I want to give you. It's a bunch of information. It's cool. What I want to do is to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by the information is I want to jump on a call with you tomorrow afternoon. That way we can talk about your experience, see what you like, see what you didn't like, and we can go from there. Does that sound good to you? Great. And not only am I just going to agree to it, I'm going to pull up my phone and I'm going to type it into the calendar, and I'm going to say, Jana, what's the best email address for me to send the calendar invite to? Great. We'll meet on my Zoom room tomorrow, 2 p.m. Perfect. Looking forward to chatting. Okay. And you can be sure that they got it and say, look, just let me know when you get the invite. You got it? Awesome. Click accept. That way I know that everything came through okay. Great. And you can say whatever you need to say to make sure they confirm that meeting. Like I've said, you know what? My calendar's been kind of wonky. Do me a favor. Just let me know when you get the invite and you accept it. You got it. Okay. Awesome. Perfect. I can see that here. Great. And the important piece here is let them know that you know they've got it in their calendar. So here's a little psychological piece, and I don't want to get too complex here, but the reason why people ghost you is because they feel like there's no commitment. If Jeremy calls me, I'm just not going to answer the phone. You know what? I'll shoot him a message and say that I forgot. I'll shoot him a message after the meeting, say I forgot. But if Jana looks at her calendar and says, yes, I've got time at 2, great, I've accepted it, she's not going to forget about that in 24 hours. And she knows that there's no way she's going to get away with some fluffy excuse. So if she has a concern about it, she's got to tell me now and we can deal with it. But she won't. She's going to show up on the call tomorrow and we're going to have the conversation. And if everything works out, she's going to join the club. And if she's not ready, that's still okay. Like, I want to be clear. This isn't pushing people into doing it, but it's making sure they've got space to have you support them as questions come up. Does that make sense? Give me a yes if that makes sense. I want to make sure I'm talking to the right audience here. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Now, the next piece, and this, if there's anything you take from this presentation, guys, I think this is the most important part. So any scenario, whether it's in sales, whether it's with a club, this one thing, getting them to write down their questions, will completely change everything for you. And I want to explain why. In the scenario that we just went through, Jana walked out of the club, or let's say she logged off Zoom and had a bunch of questions and didn't know where to go for answers. And she has the guest kit, but it kind of makes sense, sort of, kind of. And she's been messaging all these other people and they're like, that Toastmasters thing is weird. I don't know. And the doubts keep dropping and dropping and dropping. And the problem is there's a fear. There's a fear that when she gets back on the phone with me, or she shows up to this meeting after everybody said that it's a cult, it's weird, they clap too much, there's too much formality, she's nervous that she's going to get in there and be embarrassed because maybe it's something she never should have attended in the first place. Now, you guys might laugh because you've been to club meetings, you know they're awesome. But to somebody that's new, for somebody that doesn't know why we clap like crazy, for someone that's never been on a Zoom call for Toastmasters, no matter why the heck jazz hands are happening all the time, it's weird. And we got to be okay with acknowledging that and help them see why we do it. Have you ever been exposed to something and you didn't understand why it was happening and it seemed weird? Give me a yes in the chat for that. So all it takes is understanding, but we need to provide that. So this is what happens. If you give somebody permission to have questions, it changes everything. So I might say, Jana, you know what? Really glad you can make it out to the meeting. I understand you got to run. I get that. Here's what I want to do. So we're going to meet tomorrow at 2, right? Right. We've got that appointment scheduled. Yeah, excellent. Now, Jana, what I want you to do is I want you to write down any questions you come up with, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out that door, or you're going to log out of Zoom. And as soon as you do, you're going to get hit with all these questions that you didn't think to ask me. That's okay. I want you to write down every single one of them with a pen and piece of paper or an app on your phone or whatever, but keep them somewhere safe, because I want to make sure when we get back on our call tomorrow at 2, and then I'm reaffirming that appointment time. When we get back on that call tomorrow at 2, I'm going to make sure you answer every question that you have, or you get all the answers you need, because my goal is to make sure you have all the information that you need to make the right decision for you and your goals. Now, how would that feel? If that's the conversation that somebody had with you and you're brand new. Hey, Lori, you know what? Let's jump on a call tomorrow. I want to learn more about you, learn about your experience, and you're going to get off the call and have a bunch of questions. I want you to write them down. I want to answer them all for you. Give me, is that going to feel weird, or is it going to feel good? Write down either weird or good in the chat. I'm going to complexify these answers here. Weird or good? What do we got? We got good. We got good. Okay, awesome. So, and this is how this looks. Easier, good, awesome. So this is how this looks on the graph. And this is why I use a silly graph to illustrate this, because it does it such a great way. When somebody knows that when they have a question or a concern, they can write it down, and the meeting with you is the solution, it's where they go to get their answer, it changes the dynamic of everything. So think about this. We say, Jenna comes out of the meeting and she knows she's got the meeting, a follow-up 24 hours out. And she goes, oh, well, she's going to call her cousin. Oh yeah, that Toastmasters thing, it's kind of weird. Okay, well, my cousin said it's weird. Write it down. Call my colleague. Oh yeah, they seem really cultish. Well, I guess I'll just ask Jeremy tomorrow. Writes it down. And what happens is that line, that drop in momentum, you see that big red line, it changes. In fact, that line looks a lot more like this. Now there's still doubt. We're not eliminating the doubt, but it's going to drop a lot less because Jana has a place to go to get her answers. She's not left trying to decide this stuff for herself. She knows that if she shows up at a meeting 24 hours out, she's going to get an answer. And if you can see my mouse here, at this level 5 or 4.5, I guess it is, you only have to bring them up half a step to get them to the point where they're ready to sign up if it's the right fit for them. Even if you wait the 48 hours, you still only have to do one step of work to bring their energy, that momentum back, and remind them all the reasons why they were interested in Toastmasters in the first place. Even if you wait a week. Now, guys, I want to be really clear. Don't wait a week. Don't wait till your next meeting. But even if you did, and the only thing you did was ask them to write down their questions and bring them to the next meeting, and please don't use this as a scapegoat. I want you to make this follow-up meeting. But even if you did, if you waited, the doubt still takes a lot longer to get to zero. So these are the key pieces, and these are the 3 things. It's not rocket science, but it's something that you've probably never thought of because we don't normally approach these conversations in this way. So number 1, stop relying on the information, which is the guest kit. Don't put all the weight and don't put the fate of whether or not your guest is going to enroll and join Toastmasters and have all these amazing experiences. Don't put all that weight on a little package of paper or a PDF now that you're sending. Okay, number 2, book the call now, book the next call now. So schedule that follow-up, 48 hours, 24 hours out. Make it so you're there to support them when they have questions. And schedule it in their calendar. Hey, I just sent you the invite. You're on Zoom, right? We're all on Zoom. Hey, just sent you a calendar invite to that email you just gave me. Let me know when you get it. Awesome. Click accept. Great. I see you accepted. We'll see you tomorrow at 2. All you're doing is supporting them. And then number 3, let them and get them to write down their questions, but give them that permission, because when we start to feel doubt about things, it brings in more questions. It brings in uncertainty. There's a lot of chaos going on in the world today. And I don't know if I posted on Facebook yesterday saying, look, I'm nervous about posting anything, because I don't know what's right and what's wrong to post right now. All right. So we've got real world things happening, and we always do. But when you think about how that feels to somebody who's new to a Toastmasters club or as a guest, they've got the same kind of doubts and same kind of fears. They just don't want to embarrass themselves by having attended a meeting that ultimately is a cult, or being in some place where people do weird jazz hands all the time and they don't understand why. Make it okay for them to have questions, and make it okay and give them a destination to go, which is you, to get them answered. You're not going to push anybody into joining when they're not ready, but you want to make sure that you are there to answer every single question they have so that they feel supported, so that they feel special, so that they feel like Toastmasters is a place that they can go that's safe. They can go there and fail, and it's okay. They can go and ask questions, and they don't get judged. They can go and step up to table topics, and they can win that Best Table Topics Award. Let Toastmasters be the safe haven for people that just want to get better, more confidence, want to improve their career, want to improve their speaking, want to improve their leadership, all this stuff. Give people the opportunity, and don't give them so much space and put so much weight on our information and the schedule of the meetings to make that be the deciding factor if somebody gets to experience the success of Toastmasters in their life. Own it. Choose someone, whether you're VP of membership or someone else in the club, it doesn't matter. This is everybody's responsibility. Choose who's going to be the person to follow up and do it. And consider this to be your role. Your role is to help give somebody the opportunity to change their life if they want. But if that person has all the doubt and resistance come to them and questions come up and we're not there and you're not there to help them solve the problem, to get clarity on why something is done the way it is, then it's on you when they don't have that opportunity. Okay, so don't let your fear, don't let your doubt be what stands in your way or in their way of joining. Okay, we're not pushing anybody. But man, I'll tell you, when people start to see what Toastmasters can do and what Toastmasters can help them be, we don't end up being the best kept secret anymore. We end up being the best solution for a lot of people in the world. And that is that. What questions do you have? Oh, actually, I got one more thing. Sorry. I have a gift, free gift. If you want some additional support in that conversation, as I mentioned, having members or guests turn into members, it's a sales conversation, 100%. And if you'd like, I'm going to give this away for free. This is a resource I made because, again, I do sales. But this is about sales conversations. And it's 5 simple steps to have successful sales conversations. I kind of called it the ultimate sales cheat sheet. And you can use this in your conversations with guests. In fact, in your conversations with anybody. It's like 3 pages. One of those pages is the cover. Like, it's super short. But if you would like that, go ahead and shoot me a text with your name and email. I'll send it to you. No cost, no opt-in. I'm just going to send you the PDF. This is my personal cell phone. It's not automated. So give me some time. I'll get it to you tomorrow. It's not going to happen instantly. But if you would like this, by all means, shoot me the text. Let me know. And also, if you were interested in learning about a new online club, let me know that as well. Thank you. I am open for questions. Oh, and actually, I see some in the chat box here. We've got, what does the line to the left of the 24-hour represent? Oh, let me go back to that slide. If you're referring to this line here, this is the line that marks the end of that first meeting, when that first communication is cut off, and really the turning point on when things start to go south as far as the momentum and energy and enthusiasm somebody has for becoming a Toastmaster. Did that answer your question? I still don't know why the best kept secret that makes it look like a cult, right? Yeah, and and the reality is, though, it's on us as members to talk about it more. And it's so interesting because we've got all these resources that we use, but we're nervous. And I'll use myself as an example. I've got the Toastmasters pin, but I very rarely wear it out. And if we did it, I know I've got a friend who's a realtor. She wears her name tag at family dinners. It says Exit Realty, got her name. She's like shameless. She's like, you know what? I want to be here. If someone has a real estate question, I want to be the one answering it. But we won't do that with Toastmasters. We're nervous. We think it means something about us, like, oh, we're too pushy. But you know what? We should do it. We need to do it. Because if you've received any value at all from Toastmasters, you need to go find someone to share it with. Okay. It's not a cult, but you're right. Because it is the best kept secret, it can sometimes feel like it. But imagine, in fact, I did it. I've got a weekly show that Craig mentioned called Sales Team Rescue on Headspace TV. It goes every week, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. And last week, I talked about why Toastmasters is the #1 communication and leadership resource that every sales rep should experience, because it helps you build your confidence. But like, I want to challenge you, every single one of you on here, to go and find at least one person to bring to your next club meeting. Just one. I mean, if you can do 3, do 3. But at a minimum, do 1. Invite them. Say, come check it out. I'll send you the Zoom link. Doesn't even matter where in the world they are. It doesn't need to be someone that's going to enroll in your club per se. You know that there's a club they can find locally to them. Right? We're all over the world. But invite them. And then I challenge you to do this. I challenge you to do the follow-up 24 to 48 hours later. I challenge you to have them, when they leave, say, go write down your questions and we'll talk about it. I challenge you to not just rely on the guest kit. And guys, I know people are jumping in online. People aren't even sending the guest kits right now. I get it. But this is how we fix it. This is how we solve it. We own it. So if you can bring one new member to your next club meeting, and if you're a member of 2 clubs, bring someone to each. If you're a member of 4 clubs, awesome. If you're only a member of 1, go find a second club to join. Because right now you've got access like never before. I know Steph Wise is on here. She commented the other day that she had attended 4 or 5 different club meetings all around the world because of what we have right now. This is an opportunity for us. Go meet new people, see what other clubs are doing. But most importantly, find someone to bring. We have an opportunity now that people don't even have to put on pants to attend a Toastmasters meeting. Now, I encourage you to tell your audience to not stand up on camera if they're not wearing pants. But this is how easy it is. If this conference, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I wish that this was at a physical location in Montreal. That would have been wonderful. But now, when we're done, I get to log off. And if I want to, I can go to bed. I probably won't go to bed. But I'm 6 steps from my bedroom. How awesome is that? No hotel fees, no big long trips. This is great. We've never had a better opportunity to invite new members to a club. People are sitting on webinars with absolutely useless information because they feel like they've got nothing to do. Bring them to one that's going to feel like the most engaging webinar they've ever been to that actually can change their life. So that's my challenge to you. Bring one member to your next meeting and follow this follow-up process, and email me and tell me how it worked. Or text me. You got my text number on that last slide. Text me. Tell me how it worked. All right. What other questions do we have?
So, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Supporting people in making decisions that are going to further their personal goals. So we're calling that sales now.
We are.
And it seems to me that this activity of supporting people making decisions that further their goals could be a characteristic of leadership.
I think that is a very significant and appropriate observation.
And what are we making here in Toastmasters?
Oh, we are making leaders. This is where leaders are made.
This is an exercise in being a leader, in doing the very why that we came for.
Absolutely.
We have to get out there and start supporting people.
We need to help people change their lives.
And quit hiding behind this idea that that's sales.
Right.
No, that's supporting people.
Yeah. It's such a big shift, right? Like, for so long, the idea of sales, the idea that somebody could think you're pushing them, was so taboo. And for some people, it still is. And when I talk to people about, helping them improve their sales, I go back to the sales mindset and back to some time when they were a kid, where maybe there was an encyclopedia salesman at the door. I use that as the example because luckily they don't anymore. But and maybe they were pushy. Maybe they jammed their foot in the door. Whether your mom bought or didn't, maybe she got upset, and maybe that was your first exposure. Or maybe someone went to buy a car and someone tried to jam something down their throat they weren't ready for. Well, that doesn't work. You might make one sale, but you're never making a second. and then you're going to have the worst reputation ever. I watched, and I want to show you an example of how doing one wrong thing in a sales process or in anything, this isn't really sales process related, but doing one thing on social media can completely not only ruin your career, well, it can absolutely ruin your career, it can ruin your life. And not that I want to highlight this, but I found somebody who was on Instagram trying to get people fired based on comments they were making on social media that didn't align with what she believed. Now, I'm not going to talk about the topic, it doesn't matter, but this is the age that we live in. If I go and sell you something that doesn't give you the value, and then when you come and tell me about it, that's the key. If you're not happy, tell people. But you come and tell me about it, and I say, too bad. You've got a full world of social media to tell people how poorly I treated you, and it's going to ruin my business. So there's no such thing as being pushy anymore. This is you serving somebody. Stop worrying about whether or not they're not going to like you. Worry about what you can do for them. And I love there's a line at the end of the Dark Knight movie, Batman. And it says, I think it's Alfred that says it, or maybe Gordon, it doesn't matter. Be the hero the city, you might not be the hero the city wants, but be the hero the city needs.
Nice.
Right? People need a nudge in the right direction. If it wasn't for the nudge where that woman clearly said, if you say no to area director, I'm going to slap you silly. She was kidding. She was kidding, but I was still like, really? But then I said, okay. And then it changed my life. So, I mean, don't threaten to slap people, but, in a joking, loving way, if you need to be like, come on, like, just jump in the call with me tomorrow. We'll chat about it. Or like whatever you got to do. You get your friends coming to Toastmasters, bring them in, check it out. Don't be afraid to nudge them a little bit, because people are making decisions without all the information and without truly understanding what the opportunity is.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I get on my soapbox on any excuse to talk about Toastmasters, because it has changed my life so much. And based on what you're putting in the comments, guys, it's changed yours. Find someone else who you can help change their life. Find someone else to introduce them to this. They don't all have to join, and that's okay. But make sure that you've got a process in place to maximize the opportunity of them joining. Because if it's a fit, you don't want them going off going, I wish I joined Toastmasters 5 years ago when I first learned about it. I'd be so much further in my career. I'd have so much more confidence. I'd be married. I'd be. Okay, don't let them I'd be all over themselves. Right? It's like Tony Robbins says, should have done this, should have done that, and they should all over themselves. Don't let them should all over themselves. Give them every opportunity to get into a club. All right, let's go back to questions. Please send. Okay, awesome. Got some people privately messaging me, asking me for the gift. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm excited to share that with you guys. I must be part Italian. I'm not part Italian. I don't know what I am, actually. I'm confused. That's what I am. Awesome. What other questions do we have? I think, are you cool with if we unmute people?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, here, I'll stop sharing it. If anybody wants to screenshot that phone number, do it or write it down. So I'll give you 10 more seconds, then I'm going to pull the screen down and we can just have an open conversation.
Go to gallery, and those who want to keep their cameras off can keep them off and can be in gallery view.
All right. What do we got for questions?
Jeremy, yeah, I had a question in the chat.
Yes, sir.
In our club, we have free sessions, free period. So that means the guests, they have 3 sessions before they decide. How would that translate into your diagram?
My answer is stop it. To be honest, I understand we don't want to push people, and that's fine that you have it, but you don't need to pitch it. You don't need to say, hey, you know what? Come back next week and the week after and the week after, and then eventually, maybe sometime we'd love to have you as a member. Because what happens is you're actually making them feel like you're testing them out. Depending on how you present it. It's great that it's there. And I mean, most clubs are like that, right? You can come 3 times. Some people extend it because they're so nervous to tell somebody to step up and pay or get out. But it's great that it's there, but use that as a tool. As in the sales world, I would call it a downsell. Downsell is come to the next meeting, another meeting again. But for this, I would do this exact same process. If they don't need a second meeting to decide, don't use a second meeting. Don't make them delay how quickly they can see the results or how quickly they can get credit for speeches and other activities. Allow them to determine the pace. Just make sure you're there. And if they need that extra meeting, I don't know, I need to come see another meeting. Great. Well, between now and then, let's jump on a call and just talk a little bit more so I make sure you get all the information you need about Toastmasters. And then at the end of the second meeting, be ready with an enrollment form. Be ready with that application. Be ready to take the check or email transfer, whatever you do. And then that third meeting that they could come to as a guest, hopefully you'll never need to use it again. That person is going to be a contributing member to the club, stepping up, becoming the awe counter, loving, picking apart people's ahs and ums by that third meeting, and not sitting there going, I wonder if I really want to change my life. Right? Don't just, because it's there for process, just don't lean on it. Do exactly what I have in the slides. And it's just a great backup to have, but don't lean on it. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. What else we got? I see Lori called me a mutt in the chat. Thanks, Lori. Because I don't know what I am. All right. What other questions we got?
Hey, Jeremy?
Brian? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, could you just explain that blue line again? I kind of missed that.
Sure thing. Let me.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So the blue line, and I'll share it because I'm a very visual creature, so I'm just going to assume everybody else is. The blue line represents how the momentum shifts when somebody is told or given permission to write down the questions, knowing that those questions will be answered. So the red line is they're full of doubts and they're not sure what to do about it. And so their momentum drops very, very quickly because they don't know what comes next. They might know there's a meeting in 2 weeks, but they're like, I don't know. All the people are saying weird stuff about this Toastmasters thing. Never mind. But on the blue line, the conversation in their mind is, I don't know about this Toastmasters thing, but maybe I'll write this question down because Jeremy's going to answer it when I meet with him tomorrow at 2. And so it changes it. And so even if you don't meet with them, in this case, tomorrow at 2 at the 24-hour mark, or the next day at 2 at the 48-hour mark, even if you let it drift longer and longer, the momentum still doesn't drop nearly as fast because they have confidence that their questions will get answered. You've given them permission to have the questions, made it okay. Where in the red line, we haven't talked about their questions, and they suddenly feel weird or guilty or uncomfortable and are terrified that if they show back up, you're going to rope them into some kind of cult. But in the blue line, you've given them permission to have these questions and said, look, I want to make sure you have all the information you need. Not a pushy sale. It's purely saying, hey, I'm going to give you space to come up with questions because you're going to come up with them. Let me be there to help you answer them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, my pleasure. What else we got? And the yellow line, the yellow line is, go back to sharing. That yellow line is as their momentum starts to go up in that first meeting. So this is where they first join at the 0. They're coming in, they're nervous, they're scared. And as they start to feel the momentum, the energy of the meeting, they introduce themselves, it goes up. They go into table topics. They have the courage to go and speak. It goes up. At the end of the meeting, they get the best table topic award. Because again, guys, it's unspoken, or it's unwritten anyway. When you have a guest and they participate in table topics, vote for them, please. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Vote for them. Make them feel great about it, okay? People don't normally say it. I'll say it. And then at the end of the meeting, they're like, oh, I love this place. This is awesome. You guys are amazing. I'm pretty sure I want to join, but I've got some questions. So this is how the energy goes up. And this top level 5 is exactly where somebody needs to say, here's my money, or where do I sign, or what's next? And so each case, after there's doubts, that momentum drops. And these lines represent how far you need to go and bring them back up to that level 5, which is where they make that decision to move forward. Does that make sense? Where's my chat box? Da-da. Awesome. Excellent. Okay. What other questions do we have? I've got all night. Crystal clear? Any questions that are kind of similar, but a little bit outside the presentation? I'm pretty flexible. I mean, not physically flexible. Have any tips regarding members? Oh, thank you. Yes. So the question is, I know it was sent to me privately. Do you have any tips regarding members that are ghosting other members? So here's the thing I want you to think about. All of this has to do with energy. And I don't mean like atoms and all this stuff, but energy as in like emotional energy, how somebody feels about something. And so what happens, much like the slide showed for when somebody's a guest and that red line drops, this also happens to members that start to disengage. If a member is like, oh, well, I didn't really feel like I got enough out of that, and I got so much work to do, so next week I'm just going to use that extra hour to do more work. And they disappear. And then they start to be like, oh, I kind of feel guilty. And then somebody reaches out, and the message is, you weren't at the meeting, how come? And you might not mean it to sound that way, but if you wrote in a text, they might read it that way. And they're going, oh, and they're embarrassed. And so they're trying to avoid you even more. And then suddenly it becomes a game of, how do I avoid the Toastmasters, not how do I get back to a meeting? Right? And I know you're laughing, but does that make sense? Like we inadvertently push people away because we forget that what's going on in our head, the momentum, the energy, the enthusiasm we have about how great the club is, isn't the same for everybody. And all it takes is for somebody to feel like slightly out of the loop, and they start to move back. And then they miss a meeting and they start to move further back. And the next thing you know, when you go to look at your renewals, the person's fallen off the list. They're not renewing because they felt disconnected. So don't do that to your members. And I'm saying don't do it because although it's stuff that's happening for them, what's going on in the club is what's creating it. It's their reaction to it. It's how they manage it, and that's fine. But we can still own it. Again, to Craig's point, Toastmasters, running a club, being a member of a club, that's leadership. And it's your job to make sure you're contributing to this positive learning environment. Right? So what can you do to make someone else's experience better? And ask yourself that, whether it's a guest, whether it's a member, it's the same thing, because as soon as somebody starts to feel a negative association with being at the club or connecting with the member, they're done. It's so easy to not get in your car, drive however long to go to the club meeting, sit there for an hour or two, drive back home. It's so easy. You know, it's even easier. I mean, now it's easy to get on a club meeting. Like I said, we don't even need to wear pants. However, people might not want to get out of bed. People might not want to switch their screen. They don't want to click the link. There's something else. They'd rather watch the cute kitten video on YouTube than come to the club meeting because they're already sitting in their safe, cute kitten video watching spot, and they don't need to deal with any negative emotion or concern or stress that they might feel when they're in a club meeting. You ever have a scenario where someone in your club feels like someone else doesn't like them in the club? I have. Heck, there have been members in my club that I don't like, but I don't let them know that. That's my job. I need to be a Toastmaster first. I need to help them. If there's something they're doing that I think is negatively impacting the rest of the group, it's my job to help them get better, to show them that. Some people don't see it. For some people, it's different, especially if someone's from different cultures. I have one gentleman who was very direct and almost bullying in an evaluation of me, and everybody else in the club got mad at him. It's just a cultural difference. He thought he was a good friend of mine. He's like, Jeremy, I expect more of you. And he tore it apart. But he thought he was doing it from a positive and warm place. But it sucked, just to be clear. From being like, and he just didn't know. So it's not his fault. And the biggest problem in that scenario is that I think everybody else, I was really good about it and tried not to let it bother me, and definitely didn't let him know it bothered me, because I wasn't leaving Toastmasters, but I didn't want him to. But I think that the negative energy that the club gave him after that made him leave. It was me he evaluated. And it was the rest of the club that gave that energy. So it can be anything. And if somebody starts to disconnect, it's our job to say, hey, you're important to me. And it's not just the VP of membership's job to bring people back in as they start to drift. It's everybody's. Hey, you matter. Hey, you contribute. Hey, we missed you at the meeting. Now, I love when you do table topics, you have everybody in stitches. I love when you step up and do these speeches. They're very creative and outside the box. And that might be a nice way of saying, you kind of go way outside the lines. Doesn't matter. Sugarcoat it and bring them back. Because you can still help change that person's life. And that's your job as a Toastmaster. Change someone else's life. And if that's all you do, if you change one person's life in Toastmasters, you will never forget it. What else we got? Thank you, Steph. Any other questions?
This has been amazing, Jeremy. You're such a good speaker. You're such a good presenter. I've just so enjoyed this evening. It's like I can't stop looking at you and listening to you. I think even, no matter what you'd be saying, I think I'd feel the same. So keep doing what you're doing, and keep stepping out and stretching yourself, and just speak and share this value that you're bringing here tonight as well. You're just really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Renee. And to be clear, this is because of Toastmasters.
Wow, amazing.
My
What a great example.
Yeah, my first experience in front of an audience, I went, my name is Jeremy DeMerchant. And
I don't believe you.
We can't hear you. What? And I even had a microphone. I looked at my coach and I said, can you turn up the mic? And he looked at me and said, it is up. Terrified. Then I ran out and found Toastmasters. That was 7 years ago. So, yeah, awesome. Guys, yeah, do I have an email? Thank you, Renee. Yes, I've got an email, guys. I will post my email box my email box. Yeah, I'm not going to post the whole inbox, but I will give you my email in the chat. Let me know. Boom. There we go, guys. Jeremy@permissiontosell.com. And if you have questions about the presentation that you don't want to ask on here for whatever reason, feel free to message me, email me, text me. That is, like I said, that does go to my phone. So I will send out the PDFs. It's just a 3-pager. But the conversations that are listed in that PDF are ones that I've had clients use to close $10,000 sales. So it can help you enroll a member into your Toastmasters Club, I promise.
All righty. Everyone get your jazz hands ready. Jeremy, on behalf of all of us, I'd just like to thank you for supporting us in making decisions about our future actions that I know are going to transform other people's lives, and in the process transform our own lives. So I'd just like to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much, Craig. And everybody, thank you. You guys are the reason why I can do this. So thank you very much.